All right, welcome back, Wealth Builders. My name is Kyle Demian. I'm joined here with Renji Matthew on our podcast, Wealth Building for Dummies. On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the financial strategy of indexing and how to get market-like returns on your money without being exposed to the market losses and the market risk. Now, most people don't even know that this financial strategy exists. We'll talk about some of those reasons about, potentially why that is and so on. But Renji, let's get started and let's start the conversation as far as explaining what indexing is and how this strategy works. So go ahead and start us off with what even is indexing and how does it work?
Yeah, so index strategies are indexes like the S&P 500, which is the most common one people have heard of. It's the Fortune 500 companies, the best companies in the world. So traditional retirement plans a lot of times are indexed with S&P 500 because you have the safest growth, right? I guess it's not the safest growth because you do have ups and downs. So if you're someone that doesn't like to watch the market and if you like to invest in the market, S&P 500 is probably one of the best indexes you can choose. Now, indexing is something similar, but without the risks. And these are accounts where it could be tax-free or tax-deferred. It could be LIRPs. It could be regular IRAs with floors. But with any of these, when you're indexing, you're not actually in the market. You're mirroring what the market does in sense of growth. So when the market grows, you get the growth. But because you're not actually in the market, you don't lose money when the market goes down. So that's what indexing means. So I think one of the biggest questions I get whenever we talk about indexing is how is it possible to get the returns without losing money? If you want to talk on that, Kyle, you can, or I can, either way.
Yeah, I'll go into it. So how do you get the returns without losing any of the money? Simply enough, some of these accounts do have caps. So you'll get some of the growth up to a certain cap. And let's just say that's, 10 or 12%. So if the actual account earns 15%, you may only actually get 12% if that was your cap inside of your account. But when the market is down and that index is at, let's say, negative 7%, instead of you losing 7% in interest, you're just going to get a 0% rate of return. So that's number one. And then one of the other disadvantages of this account, quite frankly, other advisors in our space don't like to talk about it for some reason. And or just fail never to mention it. But there are some other disadvantages, including surrender charges, which a surrender charge is simply enough when you take out all your money, or if you were to withdraw all of your money from this account within the first few years, some accounts are 5 years, some accounts are 10 years. If you were to withdraw all your money, you may not get all of it because there's going to be this surrender charge on there. But first and foremost, this should be a long-term strategy. And like most people do with their 401ks or their IRAs, they have these accounts for the rest of their life, which you should do as well when you're utilizing some of these other indexing strategies, because it'll protect you from market losses for the rest of your life. So those are some of the disadvantages and some of the reasons why you may not get all the growth, but you don't have any of the losses. Was there anything else that you wanted to add, Renji, or anything else that I missed?
No, I think the only thing, something I like to tell clients when I talk to them about it, if you compare it to the bank, it's similar to what the bank does, right? You put all your money at the bank. The bank, on the other hand, takes that money and lends it back out to you and other people, but they also put that money into the stock market. If they lose money or make money in the stock market, it doesn't affect you any. It's a similar strategy where these companies, these financial companies are using with your indexing accounts. The difference is, I like to say they partner with you. So if they make profit, they're splitting it with you, right? But on the other hand, if they lose money, it doesn't affect you. And Kyle mentioned caps. There are companies that offer uncapped strategies too. And this could be, like we mentioned before, indexing in a FIA, or it could be an IUL too. The biggest difference here is with an IUL, it does come with life insurance. So you might not qualify and it might not make sense for everybody, right? But if you're able to get into one of these, especially at a younger age, this could be way more beneficial for you in the long run. And like Kyle mentioned, it's all about diversifying. We're not talking about putting all your money into any of these, but we're just talking about educating on strategies that are out there that can protect you. Because if you think about it, indexing in the stock market with an S&P and indexing in an IRA with the floor, the biggest difference, even if you have a cap, the biggest difference is inside the FIA, you don't have to lose any money when the market goes down. And why is that important? Because of something called the break-even burden. Kyle, you want to go into the break-even burden a little bit?
Yeah, it's funny you actually brought that up because I was going to go there if you didn't touch on it. But yeah, so the break-even burden is simply just when you lose money in the market, you need to gain a higher percentage than what you lost to get back to break even. So what I mean by that is, let's just say you had $100,000, and if the market were to go down 50% in 1 year, your new balance would be $50,000. Right? And most people think that if you lose 50%, you just might need to gain 50% again to get back to your break-even point, right? Back to where you started with that $100,000. But the problem is, after you lose 50% and you're down to $50,000 now, a 50% gain on $50,000 will only get you $25,000 of interest. So at the end of the second year, your balance would only be back up to $75,000 when you originally started with $100,000. So that's the break-even burden, because when you lose 50% and your balance goes from $100,000 down to $50,000, you need then a 100% rate of return on your new balance at $50,000 to get back to the $100,000 that you had even started off with. So any of these index accounts that don't expose you to market risk, you don't ever have to worry about that. You get more steady, consistent gains and or plateaus, because if the market's down, your account doesn't look like a roller coaster going up and down. It looks more like a staircase where it goes up, plateaus, goes up, and plateaus, right? So that is the concept of the break-even burden and how indexing can help with that. And simply enough, these accounts, are they for everyone? No. There are some people that are more than fine taking the risk in the market with stocks or Bitcoin or other things that may be risky. But also, we talk to a lot of people. Just the other day, I was talking to a gentleman that talked about how every single morning he checks how the market's doing. At the end of the day, when the market closes, he checks how the market's doing. And I could sense from him that it just gives him constant anxiety and constant worry about his lifelong savings being in the stock market. And if that is you, if you have anxiety or having your money in the market and being worried about potential future losses worries you, consider something like these different indexing strategies that we're talking about. Because guess what? You don't need to have that anxiety and that worry. Your life should be spent not having that anxiety and that worry. I'm sure your business or your job or your family or whatever else is already stressful enough. The last thing you need to be worrying about is being stressful and having this anxiety or anxiousness about your money and about the market. Renji, anything else that you wanted to add about the break-even burden, or just like how these accounts aren't for everybody, but anybody that may have anxiety should look at it?
Yeah, like Kyle mentioned, it isn't for everybody. We have talked to advisors that will recommend only these strategies, and then we've also talked to advisors that will stay completely away from these strategies. Right? It just depends on it. If it's an advisor that is looking at what your goal is and trying to fit your needs, that's who you want to work with, right? If they're trying to push you toward one product and nothing else, you might be worried of, hey, what are they actually trying to do? Because I've talked to clients that have financial advisors that look at the whole picture and have diversified their portfolio, which those are the type of advisors you want. Then I've also talked to clients who has advisors that make, especially one comes into mind. She's in her 60s, retired already, but the advisor still recommends putting all her money in the stock market. I don't think that's safe, right? Because we've talked about this in the past. Once you're getting closer to the 50s and older, when you're getting closer and closer to retirement, you want to protect most, if not all, of what you've been saving up all this time, right? At least 50% of it, because once you're in retirement, you don't want to be in those high risks. Right? If you're in your 20s, 30s, you have time. So being risk is okay. But if you're older, you don't want to be taking all those risks. And even when you're younger, if you start diversifying from when you're in a young 20, 30-year-old age, then once you get older, like we talked about, you don't have to worry about the break-even burden as much. So at the end of the day, you will have more money. That same example Kyle mentioned earlier, if you had that 100,000, now if you're in a protected account where you have the zero floor, when the market goes down 50, you're still at 100. Now when the market comes up 50, you might not get all 50 growth, but you're higher than what you started at. Like I said before, there are uncapped strategies out there too. And if there was an uncapped strategy and if the market comes up 50, you're at 150, and that's just 1 year. So imagine how much more money you would have by retirement if you never had to take the hit, but you always got to participate in the gains, with or without a cap. You will have more money to retire on, right? So this is why if the market stresses you out, these strategies are for you. And again, we talked about there are index strategies inside of life insurance, like an IUL. There are index strategies that are outside of life insurance that have nothing to do with life insurance. That work similar to 401ks or IRAs, but the biggest difference is you don't have to lose money. The biggest thing I would tell you is make sure you're working with the right advisor, because any of these strategies have red flags that you have to look out for. Because if they don't know what they're doing, it can actually hurt you more than it, especially when it comes to IULs. There's so many more wrong ways to set it up than there are right ways to set it up. So if someone's setting you up an IUL and they're doing it the wrong way, it actually hurts you more than it can help. But if it's set up the right way, it can benefit you in the long run so much more than a lot of the other accounts out there.
Yeah. One of our viewers commented while we were, chatting a couple minutes ago and said, it's compounding effects of the losses. People love the idea of compound interest, but that only occurs when your money is actually compounding and growing. But vice versa, when your money is losing and it's in the market and going down, it also has compounding effects on the losses as well. So that's a great point. And, we've talked about at IUL, and maybe we mentioned an FIA by chance, but like these are two of the accounts and two of the different ways that you can get these index growth strategies. You can get access to these index growth strategies. So let's spend some time talking about that, Renji. An FIA is simply a fixed indexed annuity. So you have a fixed indexed, like the S&P 500, that you have growth upon your money. And it's inside a specific account called an annuity. An annuity is simply enough, just a retirement account that at some future point in time in your life, if you want, you can turn it into guaranteed lifelong income that you can never outlive. That is what an annuity is. Sometimes people have, bad connotations when they hear the word annuity, because annuities of 20, 30 years ago used to be able to lose your money in the market. They had high fees, and the growth just wasn't comparable to what you could get into the market. So I agree. Annuities from 20 to 30 years ago, I wouldn't have liked for myself or for my family either. But these fixed index annuities, where they have the growth of the market with none of the losses, are a great bond alternative. You may have heard of a stock bond portfolio. That's simply where financial advisors recommend you have maybe some of your money in stocks and some of your money in bonds. The history and the rates of returns on bonds can actually lose you money still. They're not guaranteed to have no downside market risk. They do still have some market risk, not very much. They are safer than stocks, but they also don't have the upside of stocks either. So bonds are meant to be like where your safe money goes. What we talk to and what we educate our clients on is, why not have some of that safe money go to a fixed index annuity where it is guaranteed to have the downside protection, and it will get, maybe 5, 6, 7%, maybe more, as far as the rate of return on the growth in the years when the market's doing well. So fixed index annuities are not going to outperform bonds. They're not meant to outperform bonds, but it is a safe haven for your money if you don't want to lose. And what portion of your money do you want to be out of the market? I'm sure most people have heard the saying before, don't keep all of your eggs in one basket. Yep. So you don't want to do that, right? But how much do you want in the safe basket? and that's the fixed index annuities. Renji, do you want to take us through like the IUL, what that is and how that works?
Yeah, one of the comments that came up on my side on the live was, can you talk about the fact that companies can lower your cap rates? I hear a lot of fear from that. Yep, that's again why we were talking about make sure your advisor or whoever's setting you up knows all the ups and downs of any of these accounts, right? Because cap rates, for anyone that's watching, it just means, let's say, on average, you're capped at 10%. If the market goes up 20%, you only get the 10% growth. And some companies, actually a lot of companies can change the cap rate even while you're in it. And let's say they change it up to 15, you get 15 instead of the 10. If they lower it to 5, then you only get the 5 instead of 10. So that's something you got to watch out for. So this is one of the reasons why we like to diversify the indexes you pick too. Because even in the indexes, a lot of times people just put one, which nothing's wrong with that, especially the S&P 500 is, a good index to pick. But there's different indexes you can go with that have better growth, sometimes just have bad losses in the actual market. But in the index, in the FIA, you won't have those losses, right? So, and something I also do with my clients, I'll put part of their money into a fixed strategy that has nothing to do with an index. That way, if the market does bad in all the indexes, at least you still have a small percentage of growth, right? So, yeah, so that's another thing to watch out for. And going back to what Kyle mentioned with the IULs, same thing with the IULs. Those are something that you need to watch out for. There's a lot of red flags with IULs out there, and we see agents talking about pushing IULs on everybody, which it's not for everybody. Right? It is based off life insurance. So the older you are, more of your money is going to the cost side. The whole point of an IUL, if you're looking at life insurance for a death benefit, you don't need an IUL. There are better products out there like a term or a regular whole life that will do more. You'll get more death benefit for your money. But if you're looking at IULs for the cash value growth, your whole goal is to keep the death benefit as low as you can get it, because the lower the death benefit, the lower your cost of insurance. The lower the cost of insurance, the lower the commission that the agent makes. And the lower the commission the agent makes, the higher you have access to money right off the bat. What happens most of the time is the agent will set it up where you have a really high death benefit. Problem with having a high death benefit is more of your money is going to the cost of insurance. That means there's less of your money going to the growth side. And with that, the commission for that agent is high. With that, you have less access to money. We both review a lot of policies, and we've seen times where the client has no access to money for 3, 4, 5. The worst I saw was 11 years. They didn't have access to money. That means the agent set it up the wrong way, where they made really good commission, but it screws the client over. So there are a lot of red flags in these that you need to look out for. But if it's set up the proper structured way, it actually benefits a lot more than most things out there.
Absolutely. And with that, some of the benefits and the reasons to using the IUL, which simply just stands for Index Universal Life Insurance. Once again, there's that I word, index, right? Index Universal Life Insurance mean that your growth is tied to an individual index. Universal in the life insurance space just means like flexible funding and flexible premiums. And then life insurance, of course, meaning that there is a life insurance component attached to it. Some of the benefits to the IUL and the reason a lot of people look to it are just all the tax advantages. You contribute after tax dollars, your money grows tax deferred, you can access it tax free by policy loans. And then when we die or when we pass away, all of that money transfers tax free to our loved ones. And that leads me to another question that we got from Armando on TikTok, asking that if we are tax experts, and we are not tax experts, we are tax educators and enthusiasts. We do not have any licenses regards to tax side. We do help people on the financial side, but as far as anything tax wise, consult your own CPA or professional accountant that, meets with you individually and one-on-one, as well as on the financial side. This is not intended to be financial, legal or tax advice, make sure to always seek one-on-one personal counsel before you make any financial or investing decisions. But thanks for asking that question, Armando, and thanks for hanging out with us. We know a lot about the tax code. We've been in this space for multiple years combined, or multiple years each. And we talk a lot about helping people minimize and or reduce their taxes or getting out of the tax code, completely for the rest of their life and how to do that. But with that, that's one of the advantages to the IUL is people can do that with their money. And all the while, having all these tax advantages, they don't have to experience the market losses that can come with, being in the market. Right. And so with that, we talked about the advantages. We talked about, is this for everyone? We talked about the disadvantages too. And I think the last thing, we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, but one of the other most common questions that we typically get, or we kind of hear, are that do all financial advisors offer this? And the simple answer to that is no, because financial advisors do need certain licenses to be able to offer this. Some advisors also just only recommend or do what their companies tell them. And some companies are just really good at putting your money in the stock market, and they'll never look to or never experiment, or what's the word I'm looking for? They'll never search for these other alternative options because they're just doing what they're told to by their company. So if I could ever make a recommendation, it's just to work with somebody that's an independent financial professional. Somebody that, has their insurance license, as well as maybe having an advisory license, as well as just having some understanding of tax code and how retirement works. It sounds like, it might seem like financial advisors should know those 4 different areas. They should know and understand tax code. They should know and understand retirement. They should know and understand insurance. And they should know and understand the stock market. But sometimes these advisors, I'll tell you what, they're just so focused in on the stock market that they ignore the other 3. And it's no fault of their own. It's just what their company tells them and educates them on. So, you need to seek out an individual, independent financial advisor or somebody that knows what they're talking about with your given area of maybe concern, right? Or what you're looking to do. And so with that, Renji, was there anything that I missed, anything that we missed, or do you think there's anything else that we should cover or any other questions on your side?
Yeah, something that I think we did a podcast on this, how different financial advisors get paid. So you guys go back and check that out. And that could make sense. It'll show some light on why a lot of advisors will and will not recommend some of these products, because it's different ways of getting paid too, right? So, but like Kyle said, at the end of the day, you want someone that will listen to what your goals are instead of like when you first meet with them, they just go right into the products. Instead of that, you want to meet with somebody that wants to see what your goals are first off. And if with your goals, if they're able to even help you, and if they're able to help you, how are they diversifying instead of putting all your eggs in one basket, right? And so those are all some of the things that you want to look out for. And like I said, any of these products have red flags, right? So you want to look out for those red flags. So you're, at the end of the day, you are protected, and you have all of this is to have money in retirement, right? So if none of these strategies are helping you get there where you have income at retirement, then why are you doing it in the first place, right? So that's why you want to look at having, and another thing, having all this money at retirement but not using it is a whole nother problem, right? So you want to look at not only having enough money for retirement, but also how you can tap into that without having the big penalties or taxes or different things like that too. I think that's a good place to stop.
I think so too. No other questions here on my side. And if you guys are watching this here on YouTube and you guys got to the end of this video, you guys better go down there and give us a like. We would very much appreciate it. YouTube only rewards us if we get awarded with likes and comments on our videos. So drop your comments below. Let us know what other questions you have. We may even make a video out of that or do that for our next podcast. And if you guys aren't following us on TikTok and watching us go live on Tuesday mornings at about 9 a.m. Eastern time, go follow us over there and come check us out live where we can answer your questions live if you guys put them in the chat. Thank you guys for hanging out with us, and we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.